What are you clicking I agree to when you log into any app? What are you agreeing to? Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. For those who don't know me, my name is Mahela. I'm a lawyer by profession and I've been a law lecturer for over 12 years. In today's episode, we dive into something that we come across in our day-to-day lives all the time, but very few of us take the time to read and understand it. It's what we call an end user licensing agreement, or a EULA for short. You know that long block of text that you scroll through without reading and click I agree to whenever you install a new app or software? Yeah, that one. But what exactly is a EULA and why should you care about it? In today's episode, we'll talk about what a EULA is and also understand some of the important terms in a EULA that you should pay attention to. Let's get started. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a EULA? An end user licensing agreement is a legally binding contract between you, the user, and the owners of the software, authorizing you the right to use that particular software. In simple terms, it's an agreement that governs how you can use the software, and when you click I agree, you're effectively entering into a legally binding contract. But why do software companies insist on entering into these EULAs? Well, software is a form of intellectual property and the software owners want to protect their rights, and therefore they insist on you entering into a EULA before you can use the software. A EULA allows the software developers to grant you the right to use the software within certain conditions while maintaining the ownership to that software. Let's take an example to make it clearer. Imagine you're downloading a new app on your phone. Let's say it's a popular new social media app. Before you can start using it, you're presented with a EULA. By agreeing to the EULA, you're not buying the software itself, but rather purchasing a license to use the app under the conditions set by the company. The EULA outlines these conditions in detail. So basically, the key takeaway is that by clicking I agree to the EULA, you are agreeing to abide by the terms and conditions set by the software developer. This is why it's important to understand what you are agreeing to, even if you don't read every single word. Now that you understand what an end user licensing agreement is, let's talk about some of the important terms that you may find inside these contracts. Alright, what are the important terms in a EULA? The specific terms may vary depending on the software or the app, but there are certain common terms that you are likely to find in every single licensing agreement. First up, we have terms that grant the license. These are basically terms that tell you what you can do and cannot do with the software. These form the core of the EULA. For example, the license granted might specify that you can only install the software on a certain number of devices, or that it's for personal use only and not for commercial purposes. Let's say you're using a piece of productivity software like Microsoft Office. The license granted might allow you to install it in one computer and one mobile device, but not on multiple computers. Why is this important? Well, if you violate these terms, then you would be in breach of the EULA, which could lead to penalties and also your license being revoked. Next, we have terms imposing restrictions on the use of the software. These sections will tell you what you are not allowed to do with the software. These could include things like terms which tell you that you cannot reverse engineer the software, that you cannot make copies of the software, and that you cannot use the software to make derivative works. For instance, the EULA might specifically prohibit you from reverse engineering the software to figure out how it works, or from creating your own version of the software using their code. These restrictions are crucial because violating them could have serious consequences, including the software company instituting legal action against you. Another key term you will often see is a term specifying the ownership of the intellectual property. This section will clarify that the software company retains the ownership to the software and any rights related to it, and that all you have is a right to use the software. For example, if you're using an app like Spotify, the EULA will make it clear that you don't own the app or any of the music on it. You're just licensed to use it. The company will retain all the rights to the software and the content it provides. Understanding this is important because it underscores the fact that you don't have the freedom to do anything you want with the software because you are not the owner of this software. The EULA will also often talk about automatic updates. Most software companies retain the right to automatically update the software once you have installed it on your device. This can be a good thing because it ensures that you're always running the latest and most secure version of the software. For example, your operating system like Windows or Mac OS has a clause like this in its EULA. The company can push updates to your system automatically, which helps to keep your device secure. However, some users don't like this because it takes the control away from the user. If you're someone like that and you want to ensure that you control when the software is updated, then you should pay attention to the EULA to see whether this is allowed for in this licensing agreement. Another critical term is the termination clause. This clause will specify when the software company can terminate your license to use the software. This could happen if you violate the EULA, like using the software in a manner that the company has not allowed you to use it. For instance, if you are using a gaming platform, the EULA will have a section that explains that if you cheat or violate community guidelines, your account license could be terminated. Bottom line here is that if your license is terminated, then you could lose access to the software completely. So it's essential to understand what could lead to this and avoid this kind of behavior. Your license can also be terminated when the license period expires. So it's a good idea to understand how long you are getting this license for. Next, we have terms which limit the liability. These are clauses used by the software owners to limit their liability if something goes wrong with the software. Essentially, it's a disclaimer that says that the company is not responsible if you suffer some kind of damage while using the software. For example, if you're using an accounting software and it has a bug that leads to incorrect financial calculations, this could lead to serious repercussions, including you suffering severe damages. The company might limit its liability so that they can't be sued for any of these financial losses that you may incur. This term is important because it means that you may not have a lot of recourse if something goes wrong while you're using the software. So always be aware to the extent that the company is excluding its liability in the EULA. Finally, let's talk about the terms that specify the governing law and the jurisdiction. These are the terms that will specify what countries or what state's law will have to be used to interpret this licensing agreement and where a legal dispute will have to be filed in case you want to go to court. For example, if you're using a software developed by a company based in California, the EULA might state that any legal dispute must be handled in the California courts under the Californian law. This could have a big impact on you if a legal issue were to arise because you may have to deal with laws that you're not familiar with. Further, if a dispute is to be filed, then you may have to travel halfway around the world, which could be inconvenient and be extremely costly. So in conclusion, it's probably a good idea for us to have some kind of idea about these end-user licensing agreements that we enter into every day. Depending on what the EULA says, your rights might be drastically different. But of course, practically I understand that it's impossible for you to sit down and read every licensing agreement before you click I accept. But one option here is to use the assistance of something like AI to ask it to summarize the important terms of the particular EULA before you enter into it. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you found some value in it. If you did, please do consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I'll see you in another episode. Take care. Bye.